Projection.
We are back. We're taking it down, the pop culture podcast from analytical Alabama TV loving minds. I'm one of the hosts. I'm Blaine Duncan. I often wonder why I like what I like and why I hate what I hate. Plus, I'm also an English teacher who's always looking to see how films, TV, books, and music are put together. That sort of stems from the fact that I was once a kid who grew up in front of a television set, to a degree. But mine isn't the only viewpoint. With me is an erudite musician with a penchant for reading some fine literature, and your other host is a media specialist who happens to be a film buff with encyclopedic knowledge on a plethora of other topics. For this week's Taking It Down, we're going to talk the entirety of Stranger Things 4, now that it's concluded. In the back half, it's going to be a bit varied. I'll try to convince these guys to watch the FX Hulu show, The Old Man. We'll have brief thoughts on Top Gun Maverick. We'll have probably some equally brief thoughts on the FX/Hulu show, The Bear. We're going to provide you with plenty of conversations, analysis, as much as we can. You know, we're your pals. We hope that you enjoy. Subscribe to us, do all that. We're also on the alabamatake.com. You can visit that site. But here they are. Let's not waste any more time. It's tennis's biggest fan. It's Adam Morrow.
I'm up there, man. We just wrapped
Top
up a
three?
great... I think so.
You and Duquette Johnston, right?
Yeah, we were texting this morning. You know, we just ended our 2 weeks with of Wimbledon with the final this morning, and me, him, and Andy Baxter had a group text going. It's a good time.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just pick up these names we're dropping and put them back on the shelf.
Are those names? Are we dropping names?
I mean, those guys are popular guys. They're known, aren't they?
I reckon so.
The other host of Taking It Down, he has been banned from the internet. It's Mr. Donovan Ronwald.
Great to be here, Blaine.
That's Donovan. He's blasting in from his phone this week because he's in
Limbo.
You're kind of in limbo as far as homes are concerned, right? Are you just like in the bus station or something?
I'm basically homeless wandering the streets. There is no bus station. There's only bus stops.
Let's begin with our done up real good listener of the week. We will award the Dilly Bar to Miss Sarah Patterson.
It still gets me every week.
Hit me up. Sarah actually lives in Arab, which was the city, town / place I live. So Sarah, I could award you a Dilly Bar in real life.
No.
A real Dilly Bar.
No matter how I envision this award being delivered, it's hilarious to me. Like, is there a coupon
Oh, it's so funny.
that gets mailed that says good for one Dilly Bar that you've just drawn yourself? Or do you
Those exist.
Do you let this person know, hey, I left a Dilly Bar on your porch, but it's 95 degrees outside? So they come back and it's just like that popsicle from Normal People that still haunts my dreams.
I was just gonna make that same comparison. What happened to the popsicle?
From Normal People. That's so true. Sarah is probably going to listen, I would assume, because she's a Stranger Things 4 fan, or Stranger Things in general fan. So let's begin there. We're going to spoil it. Use your timestamps if you need to skip this segment, jump to another segment, or come back when you have watched Stranger Things 4. They wrapped it up with the beginning of July with 2 jam-packed episodes, well over an hour and a half long, I think, both of them. The second one was 2.5 hours. So what do we think? Let's start dissecting and talking about how we feel about Stranger Things 4 now that it's completed.
Before we get into plot talk, can we talk about the release a little bit? How did you guys feel about the breakup of the final 2 episodes and the length of especially the final episode? Because I have some thoughts on that.
It just felt like an extra. You know how the complaints about like the X-Files movies and stuff is it just felt like an extra long episode of Stranger Things. Sorry, of whatever thing it is. It just felt like an extra long episode of Stranger Things. I'm not sure it was 100% necessary.
I saw some beats in that final episode where I was like, they could have cut here and just had another episode.
Yeah.
I will say I'm glad that they didn't, because I know the beats that you're talking about, or at least a handful of them, I think. You know, they have conditioned me to expect a cut to black in that moment. And it didn't happen, which was great because I was invested. I wanted to see the story through. There was some, on that show, you always know how many episodes you have left, so it's not like this is a surprise, but it was kind of nice to sit down and say, all right, 2.5 hours, however long this was, all my questions will be answered. The season questions, at least. I enjoyed that. My problem was more that I found myself deeply invested at the end of part 1, like the first run of shows, and then when the 2 episodes came out, it was kind of like having to rev the engine up again when they already had me. I didn't totally understand why they needed to do that, because I told y'all, I was like on Reddit, I'm reading internet stuff, I'm way into it at the end of that initial run, and I get that they have prolonged, since Netflix has committed to this like everything at once season release kind of thing. That's a way to prolong that into the summer, but I don't know. I was kind of bummed by that. It made me want to go back and watch the whole thing in 1 week or whatever instead of
back to back.
Yeah.
That part really did not make sense. It did make me wonder, this would probably be a really good show to where you release 8 episodes and the 9th episode be 2.5 hours, except in the movie theater or something like that, and then release on Netflix a couple weeks after the theater release or something, if they really wanted to milk it. You know, every now and again shows will do like the X-Files, where they take a show and they end up putting it in the theater or making a movie out of it. This one could have worked that way almost.
You think so?
Yeah.
Especially with that last 2.5 hour one. Was it... Did it... I don't know. I'm sitting here wondering to myself, this may be a stupid question, but like, does it work as a movie? Is it just a really long episode of TV? And I think that's a kind of a stupid question to ask, because the differences between those two things are...
That would have been really fascinating if they had put it in a theater and it was truly the closing episode of a season, where like they're not holding your hand, they're assuming that you have done your homework and come to the, most of the time, if you convert a TV show into a film, you want to have it open enough that maybe you could just wander in off the street and enjoy this 90 minutes or this 2 hours or whatever. There would be none of that with this. It would just be fans of the show showing up to get a full theater experience, which I would be into. I would love to see this on the big screen.
Hey, here we are. It's Siberia. You better know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, well, were you guys fans of season 4 as a whole? Did those 2 episodes... You talked about having to rev the engine back up, Adam, but did it? Or were you okay with it as a piece?
I really liked, and I think we talked a bit about how, when we talked about part 1, how it seems like maybe some of the aimlessness that I sense in terms of storytelling and world building and all these kind of things are starting to coalesce into actual, there's a why that's developing in a much broader sense, and a hierarchy of the Upside Down and like what it is and how it actually interacts with all these questions are being answered. And maybe, I know we're going to talk about what this does to set up the final season, but I thought it was really satisfying both as a setup season and on its own. I thought it was one of the stronger entries into the program. Maybe part of that is the kids are getting older, the acting is pretty good, I thought, and the visuals and the vibe continue to be fantastic, and I think they even move beyond. There are moments when they're kind of, I think, resting on the heels of like, oh, we're the guys that have the synth intro music and the colors are right, and we shot a season in a mall because it's about the 80s, like all these kind of like things that are fun, but this one just kind of transcended that a little bit. It was just good. It had its cultural touchstones totally in a fun way, but was also just good story on its own.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with Adam. There were a couple episodes that I thought some of the fat could have been a little trimmed. I wasn't sure we needed more than an hour long episode for every single episode, and especially I wasn't sure about the whole Siberian plot line. Just kind of seemed like it could have been wrapped up in 2 episodes or 3. But overall, I agree with Adam's talk, especially like how does the Upside Down work? Why Hawkins? Why these people? Yeah, I just thought that the overall kind of they really took the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff and ran with it in a very fun way, and we got more of the Upside Down than we'd ever seen before, which was pretty fun, as they kind of have to explore and negotiate that. So yeah, it was overall. I'd give the season a thumb. Despite there's always little quibbles, right? But I think overall, I'd give the season a thumbs up, especially. The kids are starting to get your favorites are still your favorites, but the kids are all starting to get better too as actors. Destin would be my favorite, by the way.
Yeah.
But I thought Millie Bobby Brown was really strong this season. She had to do a lot of different things instead of just be a creepy weirdo. Not that that's what she is usually, but instead of just having to be kind of the girl out of touch with stuff, she had to do more than that over the course of the whole season, and I thought she did a good job of that.
I think it deserves recognition that the Duffers created a world and gave audiences something that they didn't know that they craved, which was 80s movies all over again. It's almost as if they had to have studied these things beat by beat. Like an example of that would be beginning that final episode of going into the Upside Down. The edits in those first 15 or 20 minutes are so fluid and remind you so much of great 80s horror or great 80s action. Take the score and how the camera angles and the movement of cameras if you go back and watch those, it's pretty reminiscent of both good 80s movies and action and horror is what I'm trying to say. Also, there's a certain bit of this that's just a breath of fresh air from the MCU and DC stuff, I think. But also with an element or two of what they do.
Kind of with like the larger universe stuff, like the psychic powers and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, specifically the powers, yeah.
Our world, but kind of tilted a little bit.
Yeah. This show almost makes me feel like a jerk for trying to find critique for it, because I felt like Stranger Things is universally loved. This season especially makes me think that, because it's universally loved, and there's really not a lot wrong with it other than maybe what Donovan was talking about, that they probably could have trimmed some episodes, and they probably could have gotten David Harbour's character home sooner. That seemed a little needless, but what else could you say that's wrong with this season?
Not much.
I think there are people who might use what you said about them studying 80s film as a critique, that it's derivative, that it doesn't really break new ground. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it is interesting that it does those things, and it is so studied and wears its influences on its sleeve, and people celebrate that. And it's doing its own thing too. I don't know. That's always been interesting to me, that people were so drawn to it, and young people too were drawn to it that didn't. There's nostalgia factor for a certain age group, and then there's others who are just purely drawn to the story. Yeah,
you've never experienced 80s films in the theater firsthand, like we have when we were small. It taps into that. That's what I'm saying. Like the audience didn't know they craved this. So you got people who are 15, 16, 17, and they're just digging it. And that's really cool, because this is the kind of stuff we were digging when I was 14, 15.
I wonder if it's a little bit like there's music that I think gets, older folks will say, well, it just sounds like they're just ripping off fill in the blank 60s band. It's like, well, even if they are, aren't you glad that this 15-year-old is like, the spirit of that has somehow come through? It's like, of course they sound like the Beatles, but the Beatles are still great. And if they're, not that this show and 80s movies are the Beatles, but
But they're a lot of fun. 80s movies were just fun for the most part. And again, I think that goes back to whether they realize it or not, though they're still making billions. We're kind of tired of MCU being the only thing that draws us all together.
I wonder if there's part of it too. The MO with TV for the last few years, say the Ned Stark effect, has been it has to be shocking. It has to have these twists and turns and surprises, and there's something comforting when you know that more than likely all the main cast is going to make it through. I wonder if people dig that. Like, I mean, it's up in the air.
I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
They convince you every time, but like only new characters die. And it's sad, and it's, it's moving in the story, but I mean, you're pretty sure that none of the 4 original guys, 11 obviously isn't going to die. Steve is, I thought Steve may be a goner after he got attacked by the whatever those things are, but he's still with us.
The bats.
The bats, yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Season 5 is when, that's when everything's going to be up in the air.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I think the body count definitely goes up for the main cast in the last season.
You're probably going to have to kill off Steve or Jonathan because one of them has to end up with the girl and not offend the other people who are pulling for them,
Now, did that work for y'all, having kind of Steve and Nancy's romance rekindled? Sort of.
Sure, yeah. It did for me. It did because Steve has a very nice bit of redemption. He's kind of lonely and sad in his own little way. He's still rich, but hey, he's lonely and sad, and he is paired with Robin, which plays so well that he is lonely and sad, and being able to hook up with girls isn't satisfying for him. It's kind of funny, and
I love it as we've talked a lot about Steve's full circle redemptive arc that he really completed a while back, but he's just like he even jokes he's kind of like the lovable babysitter. Like when Nancy says like, "What do you know about kids?" and he kind of looks over his shoulder like, "I've kept this crew of idiots alive for 3 seasons now." I like it as it's the kind of show where let's not kill anybody on the main cast, where Steve can have that conversation and say aloud that he had this vision of the future where there's kids, and oh, Nancy, by the way, it was you were there. That is a death sentence in most films and TV shows.
Absolutely.
Like the guy who says that is about something bad's coming his way, and for it not to happen.
It was his last day before retirement.
Yeah, he basically is like wearing a yellow T-shirt. You know what I mean? He's done for. But not so in this show. And I think that if maybe he doesn't make it to the end, but I'm going to go back and do a full rewatch, I think, before the final season. And I think, because even those clips of poor Barb meeting her end and her being in the Upside Down just made me think about, man, Steve was such a piece of shit. We really hated him.
Yeah, he was. And now we love him. Or I do.
Yeah, totally.
Another critique, the only other critique of this season, you guys may have more than I do. I think they spent a little bit too much time talking about trimming some fat. And they spent just a little bit too much time on the Russian smuggler. Murray was enough comedic relief for that group.
Yes.
He felt cartoonish at times, and I was just like, kill this guy or get rid of him as a character.
The whole Russian plot line really sidetracked David Harbour, and it sidetracked Winona Ryder, which I thought was really disappointing, because those are 2 of the most compelling characters, especially when they're together. They're very good.
To me, the most compelling character is easily Will, because of his PTSD.
Terrible haircut.
Yeah, no. Because of his PTSD, I mean, this guy is still feeling a lot of emotion based off of that. And then they brought up this thing where, is he gay or not? It seems like he is, which, that's not a... And they probably need to go ahead and do something with that very early in season 5, I would think. Or they probably should have done something at the very end of season 4 with the question of his sexuality, because that's starting to take a focus away, I think, from his trauma and how deep that character can be in that way.
Yeah. Although, his Jonathan's monologue when they're filling up that tank, that was nice. That was still nice. And Will's kind of choking back tears. And
For sure.
that was good.
Poor Will, he's been choking back tears for most of the season. I think that's been pretty much his only role. He's actually been a little one note for me, just because I do think his only role he hasn't been given a whole lot to do this season.
Agreed.
Besides be traumatized and be sad, and have a terrible haircut. And I'd just like to see a little bit more with him, because the other kids get to do more.
Now, someone who's going to be on the chopping block next season will be the Russian who helped Hopper get out, the Game of Thrones faceless man. I thought he was a great addition.
He was good.
He's a pretty good actor on his own, and coming from Game of Thrones, being a faceless man made him quote unquote that guy. Oh, look, it's that guy. But I thought he had some nice realistic moments that could have been a little hokey, but due to his playing it, worked out quite well.
I agree.
Yeah, R.I.P. that guy for next season.
Yeah, but he's a goner. He's done.
Does he make it all the way to Hawkins, do you guys think? Or is there other shenanigans
I hope so.
waiting for him? That'd be great.
We need a Russian in Hawkins who isn't evil or, twisting his mustache.
I mean, there's got to be some like international cooperation that happens to bring this thing to an end, right?
I would like to see more on what the Russians were doing and how much they know and how does that factor in. I think that's kind of sort of needed in order for this season to have relevance as far as that Russian stuff.
Yeah, because it kind of, I think we're supposed to pull away from last season that the Russians know about the Upside Down and they're experimenting with it, right? We don't really know any more than that.
That's right. I'm a little confused, maybe a little, on if Vecna is powerful and in control, or if it's the Mind Flayer who's more powerful and in control. And that part, what do y'all know about that?
It seemed like they were making it up that Vecna found the Mind Flayer and used the Mind Flayer. That was the way that I understood it. That he found the hive mind thing and was able to use it for his own purposes. That doesn't explain what he was doing for however long it took to start murdering people again.
Adam, you've probably maybe done Reddit research here. Any notion on what's happening?
I should have. I pulled up between part 1 and part 2 on my Reddit research, and honestly, I found the conclusion satisfying enough that I haven't jumped back in. But my understanding was that, like Donovan, that Vecna has animated this hive mind thing to do his bidding, which kind of made the I don't know, like he's sending these creatures through these portals into the world and getting them killed. He's just, he's not a good guy in any regard.
Not chill.
Not a chill dude.
He's a Black Widow fan, and I don't mean the superhero.
We talked about performances, and not to harp on these too much because it's going to be more of the same. But how about the young man who plays Lucas Sinclair as Max died? He gave a fairly believable reaction.
Lucas had his moment here, and the whole climactic thing in the house was really, a lot of that was on his shoulders.
He got his own fight scene.
Yes, he did.
He got to be there with Max and have his, kind of that emotional moment. He did a great job.
They convinced me that what was the guy's name? The high school
Jason was gonna disrupt plans on like a serious level, not like a nagging low-level boss kind of level that needed to be beat, but like could really foul things up. And I suppose he did to some degree. After he's been knocked out and the fissures in the earth start opening and his body just gets split in two, and that conclusively his time on the program is done. I found that very satisfying because I hated that guy. Possibly more than I've hated any character on the show.
That guy sucked worse than Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Back when Steve sucked.
Yes. I love it when Roger commit to something and destroying Hawkins, just have it split in a few ways with the, I suppose they're thinking it's an earthquake, but of course we know better. Having that happen, going into next season with probably these huge cracks in Hawkins, just commit to it, do it. I like it, and figure out your way to rat yourselves out of that is always admirable.
The only question I have is why anyone stays in Hawkins at all. We got that great shot of everyone who was leaving Hawkins.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that is somewhat unbelievable is that anybody's staying in Hawkins at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't the joke that Hawkins is cursed and now it's had this huge unnatural disaster befall it?
Well, we talked in part 1 about how do you explain to a town that this is happening so that lynch mobs aren't formed? When things go sideways, and you have a senior in high school waving a pistol and some guns around and leading a posse through town, and everybody's just kind of okay with it. But you wonder, I guess it's realistic. How would you tell people that there's a sci-fi upside down world and this little girl can save us and has saved us, and all these weird things happen, and so for things to be lurking and it take an actual cataclysmic event for people to actually pay attention is pretty on brand.
Do you want to know the most realistic moment in season 4 was Mike's dad sitting in the recliner as the town is cracking open, literally, and he's flipping channels with his remote.
Absolutely.
That's the most realistic moment. Wow, they ought to fix that. Click. So the Duffers have said that there's a spinoff likely with unexpected heroes involved. I don't see Netflix letting this milk cow out of the pasture yet, so any ideas?
With unexpected heroes involved, that means Papa.
What? We're going to get his backstory? Is that what's going to happen?
I don't know. They said unexpected heroes.
I mean, he does seem to have... Yeah, he would fit that.
Wow, that would seem odd, and I don't know if that would draw the viewers in, though. I'd be curious to know if this season brought subscribers back to the service. Netflix was having a bit of a downward trend. I bet it did.
You think so?
It's a popular series.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's take our break. We'll get to a little Top Gun, FX show The Bear, The Last Man, The Old Man.
We can do a little challenge talk?
Sure. This is our break for the show where we really don't advertise at all. We just try to tell you what's going on with the AlabamaTake.com. Visit that site, or if you want to stay in tune with what's happening when it happens, just follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. TikTok is kind of sort of helpful in that way, though it's a little bit more goofy. Let us know what you want to see from us. How should we be using these things, especially TikTok? What would you like for us to do? We might try it. Let us know. The podcast Alabama Slam, going strong every Friday. Superfan Corey Hanna and former indie wrestler Patrick Akers analyze the world of wrestling, especially AEW. Find that directly on the Alabama Take or in any podcast app. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Not only do we put episodes of our podcast there just in case you need another place to have them, but Short Takes is going strong. The second season most recently featured Project Say Something's founder and director Camille Bennett. It was a good episode. Very important episode, I felt like. Coming soon, we got more guests. We're going to keep that in the can. You follow us, you'll know. We got new staff writers. They're a lot of fun. They know what they're doing. They give you thoughts on all kinds of pop culture. Visit the site, thealabamatake.com. Let's get back into our show, though.
Can I say before we jump in?
Yeah.
Can I say before we jump in that your short take with Camille was fantastic. I know we texted about it, but if you are somehow listening to our program and don't watch those, if you really want a glimpse of Alabama and progressive work being done, she's about the best example I could think of. And Blaine, you did I thought a fabulous job talking to her.
Thank you. I have interviewed some people I consider kind of my heroes. James McMurtry comes to mind. I've had the privilege of interviewing people I didn't know who've done excellent work. Paul Feinbaum comes to mind. Camille was easily the most intimidating because of how important she is to Alabama, and her level of work and dedication is just, it's amazing. Go watch that interview. You'll find out a lot more about her in case you don't know. What order do we want to do these things in? Let's do a brief thought or two or three on the most recent and concluded season of the Challenge All-Stars. So don't listen because we're going to spoil this. I'm going to just toss it to Adam.
Well, I thought it was another really good season. You know, I'm more
Really?
and more into the All-Stars format. We can dive in. I'm very interested in your reaction there. Why you said really? Were you not as convinced?
I thought it was fine. And
Yeah.
I don't mean that in too negative of a way. Of course, I love it. I'll always look forward to watching it. There might be a little something to it being on streaming, and I'm like, well, I'll watch it tomorrow or Friday or whatever day, rather than watching it live, which is what I think a lot of the fans do when it's on MTV. And I don't know, it was a little lackluster to me, and what I'm going by is how much I remembered week to week. I would be like, I don't remember what happened last week. I didn't think about it too much. So
I wonder if the stakes of the drama were a bit lower maybe than in other seasons. Like by the end, you kind of like everybody in the final. You can find something nice to say about all of them. There weren't really any big bads. There's no Fessy to hate.
that's
Despite
true,
the fact
yeah.
that the skill level of everybody there went up quite a bit compared to season 1 and even season 2.
Some people might hate Wes on that level.
Yeah, like the Wes and Yes butting heads was really the only drama.
Yeah, they really tried to up the drama with the whole sabotage thing, and then once that goes away, I think my interest went down a little because these All-Stars are so polite to one another at times.
Yeah, they're like functioning adults. It's really annoying.
But so you were a fan?
What I really like about it is the format. I think the simplified both format of the individual episodes is really good, where you know you're going to get, generally they did one half elimination, I guess, there at the end, but you know you're going to get the daily, and then you're going to get a little politicking, and then you're going to get an elimination, and the worst player is automatically going in, and then there's some method to select their opponent. I like that a lot. I think the main show could stand to get back to that. But I do understand what you're saying and agree with not the most fireworks this season.
Yeah.
When you put that lineup out, you probably could put pretty good money on Wes winning, or at least being a finalist if Jordan doesn't go the distance, and John A is impossible to bet against at this point. So
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of her. She's great. Two quick things before we wrap Challenge talk. The Challenge is actually currently airing on CBS, and I don't think either of us have watched that. Have you kept up with it at all?
No.
Yeah, me either. Interesting.
No.
I almost wanted to, just to see, like, I know these people are going to pop up on a regular season of the Challenge. Do I want to have some education under my belt before I see them, or do I want to just go with how they do with a regular cast? So I'm with you on that. In that, I haven't watched it. Neither has Natalie, has she?
No, she hasn't. It's a funny time because that means there's three programs, kind of, if you want to think of them as such. Like, you know, we still have the main show. We have All Stars, which is kind of turning into like main show 1.5 more than like the retirement community.
Because of Kayla, really.
Yeah, well, and Jordan
And Jordan.
I was glad to see Naya come back. I mean, Naya could make a run on the main show if she wanted to. Does that dilute the quality of the main program, or is the main program even the priority anymore?
I hope so.
Me too. That would bum me out if they spread too thin.
Yes, exactly. And it is bothersome. I hope they don't do that. Because watching that main program on MTV on Wednesday night or whenever they air it, it's a staple in my house over the last couple of seasons.
It's great. It's a good time. It's maybe the only show. There's been some HBO Sunday night programs in the last couple of years that have become like must-watch when they get on HBO Go or Now or whatever it is.
Was that food challenge as bad as you've seen it? Or am I just always grossed out every food challenge, so it always seems like it's the worst one yet?
That was pretty bad. I've seen
It did seem
grosser things, maybe, but having to eat 2 pounds of something while running on a hot island just seems absolutely miserable. And so
of anything,
I'm
2 pounds of donuts, you name it. But now they're eating whatever that stuff was.
It's nasty. When Nehemiah said that he hasn't eaten meat in over a decade, I've always wondered that, and wondered if, now that there are more international folks on the show who, different religious beliefs and backgrounds and all this stuff, if they were phasing that out, because there haven't been a lot of eating challenges, or if it is, it's like they had them eat a bunch of curry one time, but it was liquid more than it was. They're not like eating gross meat and then they would have to run. It was more to do with spice, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah.
Than eat this gross thing. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of that.
I was going to ask you. You're a vegetarian or vegan these days? Can I ask?
Natalie is vegan. I am veggie most of the time. So
yeah.
I say most of the time. I should officially say pescatarian, because if I'm on the coast and I know where the fish came from, I'll eat it. But
yeah, I gotcha. That's so. Does it gross you out more so than it would me, or is it just gross in general?
Because I really felt for Nehemiah in that moment.
Yeah.
Like I think that if I was in his position, I wouldn't have done it.
You would have just been like, I made it this far and I'm good, right?
It's not worth.
Yeah.
No, because
that's not
ultimately,
especially as behind as he was.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their own reasons for choosing that diet, and some people it's to do with animals, some people it's health, some people it can be whatever. I'm not, there's no one reason for it, but for me, I would think I always, not to get too deep into my philosophies of eating here, but is it worth me being on this reality TV show? This animal died and has been presented rather grotesquely, and I'm participating in this. No, that is not worth it to me. I will.
Is it worth $250,000 to you? That's the question.
No.
Okay, fair. That's fair. All right, Donovan, you played a little catch up with summer pop culture. You got to see Top Gun Maverick. What did you think, man? I've seen it too, so we can talk about it.
Okay, it's hard to be. It was profoundly silly, but in a really good way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we just got through talking about Stranger Things 4, which I think that fits the bill, doesn't it? Profoundly silly, but in a good way. I don't know, or is it doing something deeper than that? Maybe, but that's a Stranger Things discussion. You loved it or hated it, or you didn't hate it? Obviously, you loved it, or where are you on it?
I didn't love it. I thought coming out of it, I thought that was a fun time at the movies. I got to see airplanes do airplane things, and that was cool. But as a movie, it's more of now. Martin Scorsese said that thing about the MCU where he said it's like a roller coaster ride or entertainment. It's not cinema. This for me was more like this was a roller coaster ride. Like they have all of your elements. They've got like Goose's son there to give you a little back drama. They've got the romance that really doesn't go anywhere just because Tom Cruise needs to play against. They make the military-industrial complex look as cool as possible, which it totally does. Launching off of aircraft carriers and stuff like that. It was like being on a very fun ride at like Disney World or something like that.
I think I liked it a little better than you. I liked it because it was an excellent, note-perfect action movie, but at the same time, it had a few things to look at and examine as best an action movie could. I thought it kind of commented on aging and masculinity a little, but really the aging thing. Now, it didn't comment on a bunch of different things, therefore it's not like a perfect movie or a really in-depth one, but I thought it was a great film. I would say it's almost cinema, if we really wanted to get into Scorsese's definition. But yeah.
Do you think it really commented on aging? Because it really kind of seems like Maverick, Tom Cruise's character Maverick, can do just about anything he wants to do still.
Exactly, but yet he is around people who can't. He goes and talks to his peer who is dying.
Right, Val Kilmer.
The character, the character of Iceman, who played by Val Kilmer, and they used the real Val Kilmer, who is very much had health problems. It kind of worked in that way. Granted, it was a brief scene, but I don't know. That scene is almost redemptive of some of that silliness that maybe you saw.
Okay.
To me.
And by no means did I think it was a bad scene or even a bad movie. It was kind of perfect summer. I'll almost say, this is going to sound like damning it with praise, but it was perfect summer fluff, right? It was a popcorn movie.
I think that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. I think it's a perfect summer movie. Now, is it a perfect movie? No. But is it a perfect summer movie? It's one of the best, I think. I think it was a much better Top Gun movie than the first one. I'll say that too.
Oh, absolutely. I thought the action scenes were very, very, if you're going into an action movie, you kind of, it's got to live and die by its action scenes. And I thought its action scenes were great.
Yes. And it didn't just repeat the same beats of the original, which, as we know from Star Wars, that can be appealing and pleasing for a little bit.
It gets old really fast. Now, does Tom Cruise still work for you as an action star? Because he's very much, this is very much him in straight-on, sincere action star roles. This isn't like him at Edge of Tomorrow where he gets, he gets to get beat up a little bit and he's kind of smarmy, and that's part. That's one of the things I really love about his performance in Edge of Tomorrow is it kind of works off his smart. Does he work as a straight-up action hero for you?
Yeah, he really does. I find him still very charming and believable, even though he's 60 or something.
He's getting up there.
He really is. Yeah, I thought it's great, and I'm still sold on him. I still enjoy a Tom Cruise movie. I still enjoy a Tom Cruise performance.
Now, did yours have a little thank you from him at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah. Well, how did you read that?
There was a little thanks. I'm Tom Cruise, and I'm here I'm thanking you for saving us for helping us save you from watching a movie that's MCU or DC.
That's exactly how I read it. Wow. All right. So we got 2 shows from FX/Hulu. You can find them on Hulu. I think they're FX Productions. We'll go with The Bear. And before I say anything about this show, it is not about the Muscle Shoals based band.
See, I saw a poster for it in New York City, and I had a real moment of I was like, wait, what? They made it that far?
I was deciding whether to go with a Coach Bryant joke or a Amber Murray joke there, so I'm glad that you took it for me.
Take your pick. The Bear, I've watched 2 episodes. We are...
Oh, okay.
Another one of those summer pop culture moments that got lost in the shuffle for me or we're behind on. How far are you with it?
3 or 4 episodes.
You love it.
I do. I had so many people either tell me to watch it or talk about it around me that I finally had to give in. And the owner and some of the staff from Rivertown Coffee here in Florence were talking about it, how much they loved it. I can see why. Rivertown has a very small kitchen there in the back where they're all very well acquainted with each other and have to work and as a pretty tight-knit crew and do a fantastic job. If you've ever, I know you guys have both been there. Mm-hmm. Blaine, when I texted you about the show, I was like, I think y'all would dig this. You said, I don't care anything about foodie stuff, restaurant, whatever, but it's really not that. To me, it's not anyway. I don't know how you feel 2 episodes in now. I didn't know you'd seen it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I watched 2 episodes last night. Restaurant or using it as a location is interesting to me. I just know a lot of foodie critics who are also, they're also really into food and how it's made and what it says about the culture. I just never have been that interested in that, and those critics were also hailing this as a really great show. So I kind of had just pushed it to the side mentally. I think I like it pretty well, but I don't think I like it as much as you. But the editing and the pace of the show alone is enough to make it great. Beyond that, what else are you enjoying about it?
I think part of it is that editing and pace, that you are getting this glimpse into this kind of high pressure yet still blue collar world that's so different than the Michelin star James Beard environment that the main character just came from. And you're kind of piecing that backstory together along with the emotional weight of his brother having passed away and the kind of the mess that was left behind of his cousin, who, are they related, are they not related, thinks that he should have been running the restaurant, and now this young guy's come in and he's going to do it, and does he really know what he's doing? Can he bring... I mean, that's a classic thing of classic storytelling technique of like, oh, college guy is the equivalent. Like, you really don't know what it's like in a real gritty place like this. But all those things worked for me, and I think it's down to, like you said, the editing. Both the visual stimulation of watching the show is pretty high. There's always something happening. It looks good. It looks gritty. It feels like Chicago. But the way that that complements the story and the slow reveal of who all of these people are, I find it satisfying. And it's a big cast to get to know quickly. Get they're all kind of serving their own purpose. I'm impressed by the writing and the acting in this show.
Yeah, it throws you into it from the first episode, which helps, of course, to make it feel a little lived in, a little like this has been happening long before you had it. You came to glimpse it as an outsider. I think episode 2 continued that, but maybe to its detriment, barely, because I wanted a little bit more from episode 2, where it's like, okay, start explaining a couple of these relationships, a couple of the backstory, just a little. It didn't give me enough of that. Sprinkled in episode 2. But again, I'm making small quibbles about what it's done, and I am nitpicking because I'm still going to watch it, and it's only 8 episodes, 30 minutes each. I do recommend it. I don't know where it's going to land for me overall, but I probably might even wrap it this week. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. I'm trying to dance around those just in case anybody hasn't watched it. I don't want to spoil anything in case they do. And there's really not a lot to spoil in the first 2 episodes.
No, I'll spoil one thing that's not really a spoiler. Any show that in the first episode there's a 30-something dude having an existential moment to a Wilco song, you got me.
An acoustic Wilco song. They grabbed one from the vaults. Yeah, I was going to ask you about the soundtrack because it's a 90s and early aughts soundtrack. We get
It's great.
We get a high school band version of Rage Against the Machine. Did you pick up on that in the first episode?
No, I'll have to rewatch it. Remind me of the context?
As the crowd was gathering outside, you could hear a high school band version of a Rage Against the Machine song.
Yeah.
And then episode 1 ends with a 1994 Pearl Jam song from their second album, which was really cool.
I love it. I think it's great. I think these are, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not, it's an interesting thing to make a show about.
Yeah.
That I don't know that anything is really that interesting anymore, because it seems like people are thankfully in the business of kind of turning over stones and looking for compelling drama in places that maybe wouldn't have been on TV 20 years ago. It's not like breaking new ground there, but I think it's a nice and maybe it's because it's speaking to my sensibilities.
No,
I love it.
No, I do think it's good. The main character played by Jeremy Allen. Oh gosh, he has 3 names, and I just forgot his last name. Anyway, I'd never seen him, but he's one of the characters off of Shameless. He's doing really good work, and I find him very interesting to watch on screen. The guy who plays his cousin was most notably known for being a pretty main character in The Punisher. So watching him and John Bernthal play against each other was pretty cool, but I think he's even better in this.
Well, I was waiting for you to say one of the main characters in Girls. We're talking about Desi from Girls here, Donovan.
Oh, okay.
pretty great.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
he is good. Okay. Anyway, we might come back to the bear. We'll do our next segment as quickly as possible. What would it take to convince you guys to watch The Old Man? FX Hulu. Jeff Bridges.
Not much, to be honest, because it's got, I'm having a brain, Jeff Bridges and what's his face?
John Lithgow.
Thank you, John Lithgow.
And
Who is...
the young lady who plays, maybe off of Arrested Development, plays a major character as well.
I didn't know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not know that either.
Yeah.
Because all the buzz I've been hearing is about how good Jeff Bridges
He's
is.
fantastic. The first episode is carried by him alone. Even if you don't dig it 100%, he does amazing. He does an amazing performance, and you want to watch the whole thing. And then, of course, by the end, you are interested. That second episode, though, is great. The pacing of the show does this nice bit of old school television where it doesn't slap you in the face with its pace. It sets up a mystery and it doles out just a little bit of solution. It doesn't try to hang on to the mystery like some shows of recent years do, where you have to go to this message board to read more about and uncover, and all the fans join in and figure it out. Not that kind of mystery, but it gives you enough of a mystery to make you want to watch a little bit more. And, you get a piece of the puzzle there. And then next episode, you get another piece of the puzzle. It's just really good. The performances are outstanding. The pacing is a little bit slower than maybe what you'd expect. I'm really enjoying it. I watched, I think, the 4th episode last night. There are 5 as of this recording. The show also does this thing where it will pivot into a direction that you aren't suspecting it to pivot to. Especially with the end of the 4th episode, I thought that I did not see it going. I probably did a horrible job of explaining some of the vague stuff I wanted to talk about without spoiling, but...
This is not going to take much to convince me, and you've got me convinced.
Yeah. Yep. On FX/Hulu. Okay, that takes us to the end of our show. We've given you plenty we hope to talk about. Message us. What do you want us to do with our social media? Is there anything you want from us that we're not doing? Let us know. We might try to work that in. We'll see. If we still haven't gotten into your dilly bar, let us know. Next week, what are we going to talk about? Probably a little bit more of the bear. And what else? Just follow us online. We'll try to keep you as updated as possible. Usually on Sundays, we send out those updates on what we're covering. We'll see everybody later.